Start.
All right, guys. We are here. We've been meeting for a couple of sessions now, so we're starting to get into kind of what I like to call the meat and potatoes of our DBT interpersonal effectiveness skill module. So I kind of want to get started by bringing our awareness into group here, get centered and present. And so what I would like to do is kind of get things started by having each group member check in. And what I want you to do is share one emotional high from your week and one emotional low from your week. And who wants to start? That's
like
okay.
Just naming the emotion or the event associated?
Whatever comes to your mind.
Whatever comes to my mind.
Maybe name the event and how it made you feel, and if you needed to cope with that, how you cope with that.
I have a low.
You have a low.
I have
okay.
a low. I haven't thought of a high
low.
yet. My low would be getting really frustrated and stressed out with some projects, and it brought me. I was feeling really down and frustrated and upset with myself. That was my low.
What was the project?
My final research project for school.
Oh yeah. And can you say a little bit more about that? Just kind of
About how I felt.
how that made you feel.
I was frustrated that I'm not as far as I want to be on the project, but also just kind of annoyed because I'm overdoing the project. So I don't know. I feel like I want to really work on it, and then I'm just like, no thanks. So I feel really conflicted.
So how did you manage that, or how are you managing that right now? Would you say that are you managing it okay?
No, I don't think I'm managing it okay.
Can you say more about that?
I think I'm managing, but not well. Like, I get spurts where I'm like being productive, but I'm not being productive enough.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Does make sense.
So I would say right now I feel like it's not being managed good enough. You know?
I do know.
Perfect.
And I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
I have a low. I don't know how it is, but I feel like I should start with my low then.
Okay.
I started hanging out with my partner. I give him my phone to like look at text messages and pictures. I'm comfortable with that. Although it seemed like it was taking him a little while to like just look at what everything was. So then I was like, oh, I noticed some scrolling. He's like, what are you doing? He did it, and I said, are you looking through my text? He's like, no. He's like, yeah, you caught me. And I crossed the boundary. I was disappointed, surprised, like irritated.
You're saying that you crossed the boundary with
like he was saying I crossed the boundary. But I started to look.
So when he sort of brought that up, or when he told you that you would cross the boundary, what manner did he do that? Like how did he sort of communicate with you that you crossed the boundary?
He had told me that he had crossed it because of continuing to like scroll just to see who else I had been talking to. I feel like my text message, not that I had crossed.
Oh, so how did you bring or sort of address that with him?
Like how did I continue to talk about it with him?
Yeah.
I know I ended up saying how it's not like I had much to hide, but I didn't like it. I could have talked about it longer with him, so I don't want to revisit the topic.
Mm-hmm. Were you angry?
I don't know if I'd say angry, like really mad, but definitely irritated.
Did you like yell at him? Did you, or how, like in what manner did you sort of approach that? topic with
No,
him.
I see, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't yell at him. The voice got a little firm, almost like a little bit more down, almost like really,
Mhm.
or oh. Yeah.
Mhm.
It takes a lot to make me yell.
Okay, fair. Well, and
And in that sense, it's almost bad because they're just like,
well, I think that's fair enough. And what would you say your assessment is of sort of how you handled that situation? Are there things that you would rather have done differently?
yes, in terms of like talking about it more, because it just made me wonder like what was, like me stating more about how I reacted to it
Mhm.
and inquiring more deeply as to
Mhm.
the reasons why he was doing that. Like I was, and besides like also thinking of the reason like yes, you know, you did cross it. I was glad that we mentioned that, and he was like, you know, I shouldn't want to be by with that. Which just kind of cracked me up, but
Yeah.
when I moved it, but I definitely could have, you know, handled it a little better, and that will happen. Well, hopefully it won't happen with practice.
Yeah.
Right.
For reflection, now I know.
Fair enough. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing that. And that's actually a nice lead into what we're going to be working on today, actually. So what we're going to be talking about is Dearman skills. And what is Dearman? Does anyone know what Dearman is? Dearman is an acronym. It's a seven set kind of group of skills that we use to attain what's called objectives effectiveness. Who knows what that is?
Is it working on
Objectives effectiveness. It's kind of it's actually I think kind of an awkward term.
It is.
Yeah.
It sounds odd.
But so essentially what it is it's what objectives effectiveness really is that it's your objective or your goal of in a given situation interpersonally what you're trying to achieve. Essentially, is all that really is. Okay. So that might include things like getting someone else to do what you want them to do in a certain situation, saying no to unwanted requests, resolving interpersonal conflict, or changes in relationships. Something that maybe you mentioned in your check-in, having your rights respected. So there's an element of the respecting. Am I worthy of respect? Am I deserving of respect? Am I getting respect? Do I feel that I'm getting respect? This would be an objective effectiveness. And then being taken seriously, or like having your maybe opinion about something, taken seriously. These are all things that maybe everyone sort of struggles with, some point or another. And I want to start things off actually by doing another little group activity here. And what I would like each of you to do is describe a situation in which you found yourself trying to be heard by someone else and instead found yourself feeling ignored, condescended to, misunderstood, disrespected, fill in the blank if you see fit. Something along that line.
I have a million of those.
Oh, so it's not going to be too
I was
difficult.
saying,
I can come up with 5 right off the top of my head.
Well, get us started.
All right.
Allison.
Let's see. Let's start with the first. The one that comes to my mind happened recently, actually. I was having a conversation with my mother, which never really goes well, but that's okay. And I was trying to describe what it's like to be graduating school. Because I went straight from high school to undergrad to graduate. So I've never not been a student. And so I was trying to describe what that feeling is like and how I'm actually really kind of scared and nervous. Like, how am I going to identify myself afterwards? So I was trying to convey that, and the response I kept getting was, well, I would just be so excited to be done and to get to start this new life and just this huge rant. And then I would redirect, and yeah, that's true, but like, and it was just not heard. It was by the end, I just got frustrated. It was, okay, whatever. I guess I'm just supposed to be super elated that I'm graduating. Like, not that I'm not, but like the other half of it is ignored. So it's just right. Just frustrated that my opinions were not, or my feelings weren't validated. It was just very like, wow, it felt like, wow, that's stupid that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you be excited?
And would you say that you have a history of this sort of dynamic with your mother?
Yes. Yes, I do. Oh yeah.
How about you, Haley?
They're there.
Oh yeah.
Just not when you want them, right?
Well, you were a big part of it because I know from a long time ago. I'm not sure how much, like something that.
Sure. Yep. So we're thinking of a situation that you found yourself in where you were maybe didn't feel heard by someone else, and you actually found yourself sort of being maybe ignored or condescended to or somehow misunderstood, anything like that, and you just maybe kind of like with Allison's situation where you just couldn't break through, sort of like they weren't kind of coming around to, you couldn't get them to see your point of view on whatever that may be.
Okay. So we'll say it has some going on, but I know there were times where like I would see something, whatever, it's good if we needed to do someone else. But it would be like my mom, and then I would feel like she wasn't like an interest or an experience like that. And then when I would feel like I wasn't being heard, or she would keep saying like her opinion or what she thinks should happen, I'd eventually just break by being like, well, then you don't really know who I am. And then I would just walk away. This was like an example from like years ago. And so like, she would.
Sure. Fair enough. So, I mean, keeping in mind that there's a context and, things may have changed with that dynamic. But we'll kind of come back to those situations a little bit here. But I kind of want to move into our skill set, actually. So there's an application, and you'll notice on your handouts how that's kind of broken down here. So so what Dearman is, it's that skill set again, trying to achieve objective effectiveness. So the skills are describe, express, assert, reinforce. And then we got to turn the page. Stay mindful, appear confident, and then negotiate. So for the first skill, we talk about describing. What that means is when you're communicating with that person, and what I want you to do is kind of if you can, put yourself in that place. So I'm interacting with my mother right now. Okay, how can I approach this in such a way that I'm describing the situation? So you're briefly describing the situation that you're sort of reacting to. You're sticking to the fact. Okay, being very objective and avoiding judgmental, statements. So the key on the describing skill is remaining very balanced and very calm in your demeanor, and you'll find that this is a common theme pretty much throughout this module. And you want to be very objective with that person. So an example of what that might sound like is, well, I've been working here for 2 years and have not gotten a raise, despite the fact that my performance reviews have been very positive. Okay. So what I've done is I've described the thing that I want to change, but I've remained very centered, I've remained calm, and I've remained very objective, sticking to the facts, rather than flying off the handle, right? So, what I'd like to do is, if you could each sort of, how might each of you apply the describe skill in the situations that you just mentioned, like with your mother?
Would the facts include like my emotions? Is that a fact, or is that not an emotion? That's not a fact.
It can be. So for example, think of it like, well, I'm I'm feeling this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, naming the emotions in maybe your particular situation is important, but what you're trying to avoid is you're trying to avoid that extra little shove that tends to go into that. Well, you're not understanding me. I'm not, I'm feeling this way, and you don't get it, and I want you to feel, I want you to understand me, and you're not, and you kind of get on this, the proverbial snowball begins to roll downhill and get bigger and bigger, right? So we're stepping outside of that, and I'm just describing.
So if I was describing,
Mm-hmm.
I'm graduating in a month, and this will be the first time I won't be a student come next fall in the last however many years.
Mm-hmm.
That's my facts.
And that's a big change. Like this is like Mom, this is a significant change for me, and I'm not, so to your point about the emotional part of that,
right.
I'm feeling really anxious about that, Mom.
Right.
Like this is like I'm not coping with that all that great right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think?
So I thought of, since the other situation was so broad, that recently when I was talking about what we wanted to do over graduation weekend, since my family's coming, I could use that. And so
Sure.
I could let them know how they ask for examples
Mm-hmm.
of things to do, and so I'm giving them some.
Those are your facts.
Mm-hmm.
These are the facts as you see them, right?
Yes.
And so what we've effectively done is we have avoided a lot of times when we approach situations like that, rather than flying off the handle and really kind of doing a bad emotional transaction with the other person where it begins to kind of escalate, again, coming to the metaphor of the proverbial snowball, rolling downhill and getting bigger and bigger and starting to go faster. We just sidestepped that whole thing, and we just said, well, okay, you know what, here, boom, I just set the basis. Here's my basis. My basis is based not on how I'm feeling right now so much as the facts. Like, here's what's going on. And I'm communicating that clearly, which kind of brings us to our next skill, actually, which is express. You see that on your handout. And so what you want to do is, express clearly how you feel. That's where, that's where I think the expression of how I'm feeling or the emotions kind of come into play more so there.
Right.
What you want to do is you want to assume that the other person can't read your mind. Assume that, okay, I'm not like Mom's not a mind reader. She may, think of it this way. She feels and thinks and sees it the way that she does, based not on how you're feeling, how she sees it and feels about it, and so on. Okay. So an example of that might be, I believe I deserve a raise. That's it. I just expressed clearly what my so let's take a step back, right? What did I say before? I described the situation by saying I've been working here for 2 years and I haven't gotten a raise despite the fact that my performance reviews have been very positive. Okay. Turn the page. I believe I deserve a raise. Boom. There it is. I have described and I have expressed very concisely, but directly. Okay. So maybe looking at your situations with your mother, how might you express clearly in that situation?
I am feeling anxious and nervous to graduate.
Yeah, that's it.
Boom. There it is, right?
Right.
So, and that brings us to the third Dear Man skill, which is assert. And what does assert mean? Well, so what we're doing there at that point is, okay, we've now kind of set a foundation to go ahead and assert wishes, like our wants. Okay, again, the objective effectiveness of, okay, well, here's ultimately what I want, Mom. Okay.
Right.
Asking for what you want, saying no clearly, and again, coming back to the idea of don't expect the other person to know what you want from them if you're not going to communicate that with them. But right there, you have a choice point. A lot of times is that as the situation is escalating, there's a choice point. Okay, how am I going to do that? How am I going to assert myself? A lot of times, what we do is we resort to increasing the volume of our voices because we want so badly to achieve something, but we don't know how to get it, so we just yell and we fly off the handle. Okay, and when that's actually pushing us away from achieving our objective effectiveness, right? So I believe to go back to the example that I used, I believe I deserve a raise. That's the express part. Just did that. Now I'm going to the assertive aspect of, well, I would like a raise. Can you give it to me? Is that possible? Right? And again, this is all done on the basis of staying focused, staying grounded, staying calm. Okay. What's I think important to kind of come back to the idea of increasing the volume of our voice and resorting to yelling and that sort of thing is number one, expressing is not asserting. Okay, expressing is simply stating kind of where you're at, but you haven't asserted anything. The other thing is that asking versus demanding. Asking for something and demanding something are not the same thing. Okay, so aggressiveness is not assertiveness. Okay, and that's where I think that a lot of folks who don't emotionally regulate very well all the time get confused. They think that they feel misunderstood a lot of times. Okay, no, I'm not trying to beat you down. I'm not trying to control you. I'm not trying to demand. I just am not being heard. I'm not feeling heard, so they resort to that. But think about how that's coming across to the other person. Right? So what you want to do is in the example, I would like a raise. Can you give it to me? I've asked for feedback right there. I've asked, hey, can you do that for me? Is that possible? This is ensuring the certainty of an outcome. So what I'm wondering is, can we do just a little activity where we want to practice the assert skill, and what we want to do is kind of, I want to do a little role play here. If you'll kindly participate in my role play, so we'll just make up a little scenario here. Let's pretend that you're roommates.
All right.
And let's pretend that I don't know. We'll say that it's that Haiti is the one who has her name on the lease, and that maybe your name is not on the lease, and that you're just sort of helping with the rent.
Reloading it.
No, not freeloading, but you're 2 or 3 months behind on your rent.
Oh.
Let's say. So.
That's too far.
So how can we? So what I want to practice just real quick is how can you assert your needs in this situation? So what you need is you need to address the rent situation with Allison. Like, I'm behind on the rent. We need to address, and this is this can be a difficult subject for people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to practice asserting versus demanding. Okay, how might you, Haiti, approach Allison and say, like address this with her using the assert skill? Yeah. Continue with that thought. But there are a couple ways. I think there's multiple ways.
Because even asking for it by like a certain time, letting her know, asking that she tells me like by a certain date if she had it, or asking that we work at like some sort of like unit type of program.
Right.
That way it doesn't all have to come at once. So, yeah, Greg and I would really like it if you let me know that it's hopefully this month and we can something like that.
And how might you demand the rent from Allison?
How it didn't ask me to give it to me or
Get out.
yeah, you're not gonna live here or I have to have it by tomorrow at 6:02 p.m.
So you can see where a lot of times, I think a lot of people have difficulty asserting themselves in that healthy way. It's a lot easier to simply ignore the situation and then wait until the situation boils over, and then Haiti is packing up Allison's stuff and throwing it out on the front lawn.
Oh, gosh.
And we're kicking doors now, and we're calling the police, and we're just having a real hoedown on the situation, right? I've seen it happen,
Oh gosh.
you know, every day. So we're kind of running out of time here, I think. So I'm going to kind of fast forward just a little bit here and cover the rest of these skills. We're going to kind of move through them a little bit quickly, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap up our group for today. So fourth year math skill is to reinforce the other person. So here again in the role play, you know, rather than coming down with the hammer on that person, think about ways that you could you know, positively reward the other person somehow, like kind of that idea of positive reinforcement. Like, well, if you do this, you know, this positive outcome, you know, it's gonna make everybody, including me, including you, a lot happier. You know, like for example, well, I would be a lot happier and probably more productive if I get a salary that reflects my value to the company. Okay, that might be an example of reinforcing that. Like why? So in other words, think of it like this: why should they? Why should they get on board with what you want? Okay, and we trap ourselves in one-dimensional thinking sometimes. Well, we assume that the other person should just see it my way. Okay, and this is, I think, maybe problematic. So think of ways that you can positively reinforce that. The next skill is to stay mindful. That's the M. Always staying mindful, maintaining your position, and avoid being distracted onto another topic. So it's kind of like focusing. We want to focus on this. Don't get sucked in. Don't get baited into, you know, some other subject. This is a lot of times how, you know, emotional situations can escalate. So there's two ways that you can do that. The broken record method. Keep asking, you know, keep saying no, keep maintaining your position and kind of repeat the same thing that you're trying to get across over and over again in the same manner. Calm, collected, cool, right? You also want to ignore attacks and diversions. That's a key component to that, okay? And one thing that I'm kind of wondering is, are there some what are some strategies that we might be able to use to avoid those attacks and diversions and you know, things that suck us in and cause problems with our ability to stay mindful and, you know, stay emotionally regulated? Or what are some strategies that you use just to avoid that? I mean, are you able to do that?
Sometimes. Until it's like, if it's like the same argument and it's constant, and then finally I give in and then retaliate. But otherwise, usually I can just ignore it. They're like, okay. Depending on what it is, like maybe, okay, I understand, but, and then just revert back to what I was saying. So I'm not like totally like, you're like, it's fucking stupid. But I like validate their little puffy little fit they're throwing and then bring them back to the situation that I'm trying to, or the point I'm trying to get across.
That's it. Yeah. It's one way to do it, right? And your main, so yeah, you're coming back to the base. Like this was the whole point in the first place. You're not letting them get you off that necessarily.
Right.
So the next skill is you want to appear confident. And so I think, you know, what that means is that this has to do with kind of the cues that you're giving out to the other person. That's a lot of that can be nonverbal actually. So that can be your body language, your tone of voice. Well, I guess tone of voice is verbal, but so tone of voice verbally, but non-verbally, your appropriate eye contact, your body language. You don't want to be, you know, stammering and whispering and kind of staring at the floor. Like, hey, you want to always approach those situations like, hey, I'm not flying off the handle, but at the same time, hey, I'm worthy of respect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I deserve to be listened to and validated and considered, right? And then the last Dearman skill is negotiate. Ultimately, that's where that's kind of what everything kind of leads up to there. And so what negotiate means is that you want to be in the mindset that, you know what, everything's not going to be on my terms and it's not always going to be on my way. And you've got to be, you know, especially when we're talking about interpersonal relationships, you got to be willing to, you know, sort of give to get, right? There's always going to be an element of compromise there. You want to maintain your position, but take on a collaborative tone and offer to do something else or solve the problem another way without deviating from your base position, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, an example of that would be, well, you know, I'm not able to say yes to that, and you really seem to want me to. What can we do here? How can we solve this problem together? So taking on that collaborative tone rather than that standoffish, you know, tone that ultimately leads us again down an emotional path that we don't want to go down. Okay. So I was going to actually have us do a little bit of a group discussion. I think we're kind of out of time here, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And I do want to ask you, what is one thing that you learned from today's module that you think would be most helpful for you?
Learning, I think, to describe the situation using facts.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and just sticking to the facts rather than like I feel I make assumptions a lot, so I always am like, well, you're doing this and putting it on the other person, but just staying to the, like, this is concrete facts.
Sure.
The reinforced stuff I differently. I think maybe sometimes I think because sometimes when I've done that, it's almost been worded in the opposite direction that it is on here. Or if it's not clearly stated, almost like, well, they can see how this would help, you know, however a situation would benefit them when they might not.
Sure. So our homework for this week, we are going to, I would like you to practice your Dearman skills by putting yourself in a real life interpersonal situation. Some examples of that might include going to a library and asking for help finding a book, asking a person to stop doing something that bothers you, asking a friend for help with fixing something. You can disagree with someone's opinion. Any of these would be examples of just you know, consciously put yourself in such a situation and where you would need to practice using some of those skills. So if anyone has, as long as no one has any closing thoughts, I think we can wrap up our group for today. So good job, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, we went over time.
Yep.
How far over?
10 minutes.
Okay, so much.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's
I think
tricky though, I think. It's almost
you think,
like you
like,
had to
20
be the guinea
minutes?
pig because it's not like we all have to practice to like gauge what that time would feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it always feels like it's going to be so much more time. And it's really not.
Great. Snow. Yay.
What?
Oh my
I know. I
God.
noticed that shortly after we started the video. I was like, alright.
Do I need?
Do we want to like shift?
Oh yeah. Oh, and.
Maybe I should upload that
Just
video
so-
to YouTube right now.
You could
Well,
try
you do
yeah,
that,
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to the
just-
bathroom.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect time. Stretch all day.
Oh, that's what I was gonna do. I was gonna print off those.
I was saying, if you need, I print off two. I could always do them in different colors.
Oh.
Like one for